suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and slow for holding, and their roads so very wide. They are fear, blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and slow for holding, and their roads so very wide.
Good morning.
Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross the river of song. Let us span another canyon, let us ride. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and beyond on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're off and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and beyond on our way. We will tell them building bridges and beyond.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines. That's his Bridges song. And matter of fact, we opened it up with a band last night who played, or the other night, who played Bridges programming live for us.
It was only the second time they
ever played
performed it. So
together.
They didn't have the tune the same as Bill Staines, but it was an interesting
tune.
It
was okay.
Yeah,
so anyway,
they did a nice job with it.
So here we are. I'm going to just get my stuff to do the move, change the camera's angles and start to control the video and audio of the program. Well, welcome to Bridges Programming. This is Sunday on the Front Stoop, as Dennis called it, the longest front stoop in the world. You're welcome to join us in different ways. I'm Jeff Beller, your host, and the other host is Susan Comont, and the third host on the phone is Dennis Carius. Hello, Dennis. How are you?
Thanks, Jeff. Hi, Susan.
Hello, Dennis.
It's great to see both of you.
And I think this is
I wish we could see you.
Yeah, eventually we're going to get Dennis to learn how to do the Google Hangouts, because we are a bunch of old people, and I think the young people know how to work this better than
Dennis,
we do.
you got to learn this over the winter.
And by the way, if you're a young person and you understand what the HERM, Human Renewable Energy Measure is, start your own show about it. You don't have to join us. You know what it's about. You know that all humanity has to have their basic needs met or they'll die, their education, food, and shelter. And you know that you don't want to be a slave to get those things. So it's pretty simple. All humanity understands basic needs met. Now, wants are different than needs. Wants are, you may want 5 or 10 cars.
Or 10 cats.
Or 10 cats, or maybe 2 cats. Or you may want to go to an all-you-can-eat buffet, or you may want to have a plug-in car or a Hummer. Those are your wants. Those aren't your needs. Those are wants, and you can work as hard as you choose to work for those wants. But you should never, ever allow another human being on this planet to suffer or starve or be homeless or not have education if they choose to have it. That's pretty simple. I don't know how much simpler I could say it. I keep on saying it over and over and over again, like an infomercial. What you're looking at on your screen now is a book, right, called Illyria's World, about climate change. And you can get that book
as a free... for kids from 6 to maybe 12 years old.
And Susan wrote that book.
It's a fantasy that's in the mind of Illyria, and she's having adventures with her buddy, a robot called Sunny. And as she's learning about climate change in school, her imagination is turning, and she's sort of daydreaming, and she's imagining things that might occur because of climate change. And so these are the various adventures that she and the robot go through and come out of, and and then she comes to some conclusions later and asks some interesting questions of her teacher. And so it's a way of introducing young children to what they're born into right now, which is a fluctuating situation with climate that is going to impact a lot of populations, all populations eventually. right now it's impacting shoreline and island populations very extremely. It's very obvious there, but also we are experiencing droughts and floods in places where on this planet they haven't been very common in the past. So anyways, this is a way to introduce youngsters to the what's happening in their world and how they can do positive things to help their communities, to help their planet ultimately,
and help other people.
and help
Other people, and if we get involved with what the economic system and basically understand that, like there's an expression. Oh, Dennis, by the way, I got so many things I'm thinking about at the same time. One thing you could do, if you can download that book free on Renew the Earth. It's a free download.
RenewTheEarth.org.
RenewTheEarth.org.
It's a not-for-profit, right?
And you can download that on your as a PDF, or you can download it as
it's
you'll
free.
download the whole book. It's free, and it's a cartoon. It's only about 20 pages, and you could read that, and maybe we can discuss that on the program next week. Can you possibly try to download that, Dennis, for yourself?
Yes, not during the show, but yes, I can do it.
Right, if you could do that, and then we can discuss what that's about.
And if anybody listening would like to animate it, that would be delightful.
Yeah, we'd like to get an animation, like a real. Right now, it's a cartoon. It's a like a joke book, and it's about an actual robot that's about
like a comic book.
Right, a comic book.
Right.
And we'd like to get that animated and get that on our
Because
site.
people like to watch animations, especially children.
So that's one of the goals, and the other one is I just lost that. That was anyway. The other one, so
Did you want to introduce other websites?
Yeah, the other one is going to go. You can go on to bridgesprogramming.com, Renew the Earth, and of course the HREM.org, Human Renewable Energy Measure, and that's the impetus for this programming. We want to make sure that people understand that the economic system doesn't take into account reality. In other words, let me put it this way. So can I ask you, there's a song out there by Jim Croce called Time in a Bottle. Did you ever hear that song?
Time in a bottle?
Yes.
Yes, I've heard that, yes.
And if I could put time in a bottle, it's a love song, but the reality is you can't put time in a bottle, can you? I mean,
it's constantly
it's
passing.
always, and there's another expression out there, time and tide waits for no man. You've heard of that, right? Time and tide. In other words, you can't stop the tides from coming in, and you can't stop the time as we perceive it from changing. It's always moving. You can't change the fact that we're getting older. You can't change the fact that trees will grow and the water will come up and it rains and the sun comes out. Can't change the flow of nature.
And you can't change the flow of our planet.
Right.
We're spinning on an axis which develops what we perceive as days and nights, and we're also orbiting the sun.
And the reason why this came to mind is our clocks changed today.
Oh yeah.
And
did you know that, Dennis? Did you get the clocks right?
Yeah, you got the clocks right.
You got the clocks right, yes.
Well, last time it changed, I didn't know it. You told me about it.
Yeah, Dennis is always really good at this.
But I looked up on my ceiling where we have a flashing clock, and the clock said at different times, oh, the clock must have broken. Then I checked my phone, and no, the clock was right, but my other clock that doesn't change automatically was wrong. Now, the reality is nothing really changed other than man-made
perception of time.
Perception of time. Right? Nothing's changed.
Because we don't like to have to wake up in the morning and commute to work in the dark. So there's been an arrangement for, falling back, as they call it.
We actually change our clocks because we want to make sure we get to work on time, and that's about the economy.
It's not very helpful.
No, it's not
at all, because the use that it had before was so that
because we didn't have electric lights.
people could work their farms in daylight, right?
Right.
But now that's that use is really, I think, should get rid of all this dropping back and leaping forward with time. But we haven't done that yet. Like a lot of things, we haven't done yet.
But see, but the point I'm trying to make is that nature's life, our needs don't change because of man's laws, and that's, you can read today's summary, and then
Yeah, and I made the wrong kind of comment about the falling back at this time of year, where we it would normally be what right now 11 o'clock, but we changed it to about 10 o'clock, right? We dropped back an hour. That's so that people, when they're driving home, have a little more daylight, I guess.
well, it's in the morning when you wake up.
But in the morning it's dark, so it's not helping
Yeah,
the morning.
but they
at
want you
all.
to get up where it's daylight. So they're giving you, Dennis,
Yes.
you understand why we
I don't
changed?
know why it doesn't make any
We
sense
move the
to
clock
me.
back in the fall and we bring it spring forward in the spring?
Yes, I think
Oh,
that daylight saving time, and just to make it even easier for people. And wasn't it only like about 10 years ago when they said, we're going to stop doing that? And then there were people that died, like, you know, in auto accidents and stuff. And then that, like the next year, they went right back to the way it is today.
Yeah, but how does it help people? I don't understand.
Well, I think that's why they stopped. I'm not sure if it was 9 years ago or 11 years ago, but they stopped, and then it was in just 1 year people were dying in auto accidents because they just weren't used to getting up when it was dark, going to work, or even
yeah, but that's what you've been
doing
doing all the way up to this point, and getting used to it, and it's not any kind of abrupt change. It's extremely gradual change because the tilt of the earth.
Well, the thing is, wouldn't it be easier just instead of changing
just let
the time?
people get used to
Just go
slowly.
by, so you say to people, well, look, what we're going to do is we're just going to make sure you go in daylight hours. But here was, now watch this, Dennis, because we couldn't just say drive your car to work in daylight hours.
Because that would be the best thing for
Right.
humans to do.
So
right.
what we did is we had to put a number on it. So we changed the number from let's say from today from 9 to 8, or from 8 to 7. We actually, or I'm sorry, 7 to 8 or 8 to 9. We sprung ahead with a measurement, so people know what the measure is.
Yeah, but no, this was fall back, Jeff. You're getting confused here.
But you fell backwards, so you're getting up an hour later.
That's true.
Because so you're getting up in daylight time. Like I noticed about a week ago that.
But at the end of the day, it's darker.
Right, but I'm just.
So you're getting more endangered at the end of the day. So what's the point?
Right. But people are used to that.
Yeah, they're also used to the gradual change in the
morning. No, they're not
too.
In the morning hours.
It's been gradual.
All I know is when I get up in the morning in the summertime, it's bright.
Oh,
it's
of course, but as the summer progresses, you know that it's been getting darker in the morning and darker and darker.
Yeah, but the thing is,
and it's very gradual.
But our economic system requires a measurement.
It's the economics.
Our economic system or human system. But if we want people to drive at a certain time to get to work, they literally put a measurement in there. And so we're going to change the measurement for this time of the year. So people will drive at daylight hours. Yeah,
but they could have just changed the time that they are required to get to work, so that they could drive in daylight hours.
Right, but they
instead of changing the whole
time
rigmarole.
But they still needed a measurement. No matter how you put the measurement in place, it still needed a measurement.
From now on, you don't have to be at work until 9 o'clock instead of 8:30 in the morning.
But they still have to change the measure. But then people would have to leave later for work, so they would feel like they're taking advantage of. Because they're going to get home later at night because we didn't move the clock back.
Yeah, but it's all psychological as far as that.
Well, so is our whole economic system.
It's still, the time is the same.
That's the point I'm making. The entire economic system is built on a false premise by man's law. And that's why if you read your statement.
I'll read the summary for today. Okay, what are you worth is our title of the program. What are you worth? And and then I go on to say, this is a question that that Jeff asks people randomly and frequently. I mean, we go our normal routines and our not so normal routines. We always encounter people, either cashiers or people working in stores or people in the parking lot or
we get
people in
talking
groups.
to
And Jeff is a very a gregarious individual. He likes to engage people in conversation. And one of the questions he asks often is, what do you think you're worth? And the most common answer to this question is, I'm priceless. Now, on a subjective level and an individual level, this is true. But within our economic system, a human is worth whatever someone else feels they're worth. This is because there's no baseline to measure human worth from within our economic system.
There's no Greenwich Mean Time.
for human value.
Is measured in England, in Greenwich, England, and they have Big Ben, and they say Greenwich Mean Time is, and the whole world goes off of that one base measurement. So over here it may be 10 o'clock, in England it may be a different time, in France a different time, but the whole world works off a baseline number for time.
But we don't, in our economic system, work off of any kind of base number for human value, human worth.
Right.
And this is a system that we all have to participate in, and the way that we make our arrangements with our economics that we're born into or develop throughout our lives. Everyone has to do it. It's a coerced system. It's one that we've all been living under for thousands of years, many, many generations. And laws are written to give advantage to profit making within our economic system. The premise of our economics is profit making at any cost to humanity and at any cost to nature. Because our economics is based on this false premise of endless growth and maximization of profit. We're not, the economics is not out there to provide your children with an education or you with an education. It's not there to help you have shelter and food every day for yourself and your family. It's not beneficial or beneficial. It's not beneficent. Beneficent, is that the word? Or beneficial? Its main premise is to make profit and consolidate power and profit.
It's sort of a monster that keeps on growing and growing, and even the very wealthy people, don't understand how much they're caught up in.
And the endless growth assumption of our economics is based on the another assumption that there is not enough resources, food, shelter, etc., on this planet to supply every human person and to protect nature, etc., that there's just not enough. And so and they use Darwin to bolster this with survival of the fittest, and
they use religion to do
ridiculous.
They use religion to do
other ridiculous assumptions.
They have so many different analogies to make you believe that there's not enough for everyone, so you have to make sure your family's fed, or those people is going to take it from you because you have more than them.
Mm-hmm.
Protect yourself. And then on the same token, they're saying, love thy neighbor, treat others the way you'd like to be treated. I mean, this is Sunday on the Front Stoop. You can go into that, Dennis, if you want. But then when we go, the reality of it is we're killing people all over the world.
Within our economics, we do not do unto others as we would have them do unto us. We do not do that at all. It's a completely different
for instance, on the beginning of the program, Dennis said to me, would you loan me some money? And I said, how much? And then I said,
he was kidding.
Yeah, and I said, well, how about your firstborn? And then he said,
Oh, that's okay.
and then I realized he didn't have any kids, but he's got cats, which he loves a lot. So I said, how about your cats? So I got to ask you, Dennis, how much are your cats worth?
Wow, how much are they worth?
Oh.
I mean, you could ask any parents how much are your children.
No, I'm asking you what your cats are worth.
Would you give your cats for a loan? Would you put your cats up to back up a loan?
You would tell me your cats are priceless, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good word, priceless.
Right now, whenever I see, the people put their kids in a shopping basket when they walk through a store.
Right.
Right? And I walk over to them, I say, where'd you buy the kid?
Wow.
Oh, Jim.
I walk over, hey, where'd you buy that kid? How much is that kid? Which aisle is the kid in? And they look at me and at first, sometimes they think they take me seriously and they don't know what to make of it. And I'm, of course, kidding them. But the reality is that kidding them is, that is cute. It's like there's a movie and the guy, he's a caveman and he called himself Mr. Oldman. So old man is the pun for that, old man. Right. Anyway,
I haven't finished the summary
okay,
yet.
go ahead.
Okay. So, what our assertion is that the premise needs to change within the economic system, and this can only change if people agree to change it. And we would hope that the premise should be changed that all basic needs of humans are met through economics, first and foremost. And those basic needs are, food, shelter, and knowledge. Or, you can define those different things as you wish.
But before I go any further,
within the context of where you live.
The most important thing, like when you look at when you see the ingredients of an item like food, and they always put the largest thing first, the most important thing first, the amount in there. The most important thing we talk about basic needs met is, first of all, in the equation is your time, your life. We live 80 years of age. We can't change that no matter what. And before we
time is our most valuable.
Time is the most valuable
once our life begins.
Right. And that's because we agree that there's such a thing as time.
Well, we can see it pass because things age and grow and
but
those things.
A squirrel, I don't think a squirrel or a bird or an animal actually has the same perception we have as time.
No. I don't think so. Perceive time.
Well, yes, but I don't think they have the same perception as we do. And that's what makes us a little different, because we look at things subjectively as well as objectively.
Well, Buckminster Fuller would say that we're one of many of nature's experiments. And she did give us a different way of perceiving our lives than other animals.
The point I'm trying to make is that, I know I lost my point.
Subjective, objective.
So those are some of the things that we see time differently. So time is that's the key thing in the measurement, the HRM. The next thing is not food or shelter. The next thing is the knowledge of food and shelter. So knowledge is the next key thing in the ingredients of the HRM. Education is the second thing. Time is first, and that's measurable. Education is not measurable. It's part of humanity. The better a human being's educated, the better humanity will be, and that's been happening from the beginning of our time. We've been learning as a species from millions of years ago, whatever you want to believe, thousands of years ago. We are constantly learning. And then food, of course, and we often have people say nutrition substitute. Well, right, nutrition, because they want it to be. They want to call it something different than calories. Right. It's got to be good. You can live on less energy, calories if it's nutritious. More nutrition. But basically, we can accept it for science. And shelter, of course, that's again very subjective. But basic shelter is just to keep you safe and free from the weather. From the weather and predators. Right. Including other people. Including other people. So shelter, so those are and that's a measurable item as well. So if you're a mathematician, you can actually set up an axiom of those three things, because you have measurements for shelter and energy units, food and water, and measurements for life. So you could actually set up an axiom with those three things.
An equation.
An equation. And
which is the same.
And we have we have equations for the food and the water and the shelter, but we don't have the equation, and for life, but we haven't put it together like you would do for gravity. Because the gravity,
We need a comprehensive
to
thing,
understand the measurement, to put the three items together, which is the HREM, is the measurement.
Expressing this in words is one thing, but expressing it in what we acknowledge as the symbols of science, numbers and
That's another
various things like that. That's for someone whose profession
who
encompasses that.
studies
Right,
just
exactly.
that, right?
And we've approached various people that we know have this capacity, but so far we've got just the equation from David Borden, which was created to express energy in general, but it did use humans as
The base.
the test creatures for it, and it turns out it really is a measure for human and renewable energy.
Right, it's a renewable energy measure, but it's
Based on
actually a human renewable energy.
capacities of
In other words,
pedaling bicycles.
if you can figure out how many hours of labor you need, and they call them energy slaves, I call them energy angels, to run your refrigerator. You need to have 2 or 3 people working for you, pretty much round the clock, to keep your refrigerator running. And people don't understand that. And David calls them energy slaves, and Buckminster Fuller I call them energy angels, because without the sun's energy and using electricity, which is based on the sun pretty much, then those are energy angels. Without those angels, we would have to work much harder. And without the sun, we wouldn't be here. So energy from the sun is our baseline. And now we're using solar, which is I think we're just beginning to use the nature's energy. So we're learning about that. So that's the story on that project.
Okay, I'll go on with the rest of the summary.
Go ahead.
And so if you have a different premise for the economics, you need different laws too, because right now the laws have been tailoring over the centuries to strengthen the false premise of profit making in our economics, that it favors corporations and all of the kind of things they do to dodge preserving natural resources or hiding technologies until they're ready to make money off of them. All the various ways. I don't need to go into all that. But what we need is a working people's law that focuses on getting these basic needs met. And that looks like we've got 4 of them now. Time,
Right.
which is that you don't get your life cut off right at the beginning. So you have your time of your life.
When you say time, it's also how many hours a day you choose to work.
That's true too.
So so we say time, we're not saying to someone, you can't work more hours if you choose to.
Mhm.
We're saying you must work 1 hour, which will give you all the basic needs met. But then you have to define the word work.
Time of work is
Time
what you're
of
saying.
work. Right?
Yeah. And if you base economics on providing
Let me get back to that.
for each person's work
I
time.
want to get back to that. People say that it sounds like Marxism, and it's not, because, and when you're saying, well, it sounds like capitalism, or I'm sorry, it sounds like socialism and communism. It's not. We're saying any human being can work as hard as they choose to work, however
Many hours as they choose to.
many hours, or how hard.
That's true. They're both those.
You can do as much as you. We're not saying any one person shouldn't be allowed to work as hard as they want, make as much as they want, produce as much as they want. That's up to the individual. That's not communism, and you don't have to share that with other people. That's your right, as long as you're not hurting anybody while you're doing that. So they have their basic needs met, and you're not taking from that person. That's the difference between socialism or communism or what we're talking about, which is humanitarianism, We're saying if you're ambitious and you like to cut wood, or you like to build homes, or you like to do study for technical study, or you like to build amplifiers or study electronics, you should do that as much as you choose to do. It's not up to any human being to tell you you should not do that. And if you can gain from it, that's perfectly all right to gain from it. You know, you work harder, you get more. However, you can't hurt another human being while you're doing it, and that's what the basic measurement is. It's sort of, you can call it a safety net. Once this is understood, you can then put in, you can get rid of minimum wage.
But it's a safety net that everyone is working
worldwide.
Right. They're all putting
no human being
a minimum amount of hours for
their basic needs.
For securing their dignified needs. Survival.
Right. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Right.
Let me ask you, did that make sense to you, Dennis?
Oh, yes. It's very interesting because we right now have free grade school. When we talk about education being free, we have free high school too. It's just interesting that when a child is 18 years old and graduates from high school, then it's time for college, and it's so expensive. Why should college be more expensive than the cost of kindergarten? Because kindergarten, those kids cannot go on the computer and learn. But when you graduate from high school, it doesn't matter what major you want. You can do 90 or 95% of your education over the internet, and it's only that 5% where he comes in here and he says, okay, it's time to take a test, okay? But it's still a lot less work for those teachers than it is in something like grade school,
but you're
kindergarten or first grade.
The economics,
so I'm just saying isn't it interesting when a child is 18 years old, graduate high school, it's time for college, it's so expensive.
Okay, but why?
Go into the military, don't worry, you'll be able to afford it when you get out of the Army.
Whoa, stop, whoa.
Have to ask.
Hold it, Dennis, stop a minute.
Go ahead, okay.
The reason why that is that way is because the economic system says if you go to college, then you'll be able to make a better living when you're through with school. So most people going to college, they want to make as much money as they can when they get out of college. So it's based on the economic system. So because you can make money with it, the system, the economic system took over the colleges. And they said, now you got to pay to learn.
Even more.
Right. And the reason why they're doing that is because of the economic system. Because you can make more money if you have a degree. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So what you're talking about is the current economic system, the way it is today. Is that correct? That's a yes or no question.
And the yes or no answer is yes, that's correct. Okay. Ever hear something dysfunctional?
Okay, well, the reason why it's a dysfunctional, and I'm going to answer that question for you, the reason why it's a dysfunctional economic system is because the economic system is trying to make profit on somebody else trying to make profit, using the education system is their tool to take your life away, so you have to pay a small percentage of the world population so you can make more money down the road. So only the wealthy people can be highly educated. So therefore you separated the human species again by wealth, not by ability. And that's why we have that problem. And that has been so hidden that most people don't understand it. And we say, well, that's why it's not free. Well, the reason why it's not free is because you can make more money if you get an education, and then that's even broken down to what college you go to. You go to Harvard, you go to the Ivy League colleges, which most people can't afford to get into. They have some token, a few people get into them, but most people go there. Like our president has lots of money, George Bush I was talking about, and his father went there, and the money was able to get him to go to college. Not that he's smart about going. And if people go to RPI to get an engineering degree, they're not really interested, most of them, in not learning about engineering. They're interested in getting a degree so they can put on their resume they have a degree, so they can make more money. That's the problem with all this stuff. It's all based.
There's a lot of clout involved with having degrees in this country. The people take that very seriously, when really it's not that. It's mostly money that now makes it possible for people to get degrees, and most people are being, most of the population is either saddled with debt after they accomplish this, and this cripples them throughout their working lives and makes the decisions that they make.
And that's been going on since the beginning.
Right.
Like the Ivy League schools were originally set up for the very wealthy parents to send their privileged children to school to become leaders. And then we opened up other schools, colleges, to make people good workers for engineering.
And it's still basically that.
And it's the same thing, right? So
but it's disguised in certain ways to make people feel that there is mobility through these various socioeconomic levels. There is a bit, but it's not as much as it was when in the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Right.
Still, there was a lot more mobility. 70s it started to close down. 80s really it closed down. Now we're getting fewer and fewer opportunities for people who are born without opportunity. Okay. Anyways, so how much can we change the premise as right now? How can we change the premise of our economics to abundance, to perception of abundance, that there is enough for everyone, there is enough there are enough resources for us to protect nature, to enhance our environment. There are enough resources because our technology is so sophisticated now, and if it was actually being used, as Buckminster Fuller asserted all throughout his life, to promote livingry instead of weaponry, we would be way ahead of our development now as a species. And we can do this because we're capable of it. We know how to invent wonderful tools, wonderful technology to enhance our abilities. And we have now even an external brain with the internet that we can hold in our hand in the form of a phone. And every time you have something that you're curious about, all you have to do is even speak into it, and a few words will bring up what you're curious about, close to it. And then so we're really doing amazing things and
with technology, but we're not doing anything to help humanity. That's our problem.
Well, not deliberately, but as Mr. Fuller said, and we spoke about in our last program, there is a right angle effect from all this stuff. The intent might be to have wars with all these different technologies and stuff that we're inventing, but there are side effects that are enhancing our ability to survive if only we recognize them and start enhancing those and eliminating the ones that are destructive. Any technology can be a destructive force or a creative force, and that's not hard for people to understand and figure that out. So I have an article here that we can refer to a little bit. We just have about 20 minutes left.
Well, I want to get Dennis in here. This whole premise that the economic system is built on a false premise, like 5,000 years ago it started. Could you understand that if it was built on a premise based on time, just like we did today, we changed our clocks, but it was built on a premise to help humanity, all of humanity,
with knowledge, nutrition, and shelter,
education, food, and shelter.
Right.
Then we would change the fact that we wouldn't have people joining the service to get an education. They wouldn't be going to school just for the sake of making money. They'd go to the school for the actual sake of learning things. That's the important thing. Does that make sense to you?
Oh, that's a great question for Sunday on the Front Stoop, because I agree. We should love thy neighbor, thou shalt not kill. And it's really sad what's going on over the Middle East. I don't even call them terrorists. because there's oil under the ground over there. And I think that there's a lot of killing going on just because we want to get a good price on oil over in the Middle East. We could just get off of that and go over to solar power, wind power, and actually you would save our planet from, you know, climate change or global warming.
Well, first of all,
so I really think that.
Okay. Let me quick take that. Let me quick take that, because we're going to be talking about the next. You just talked about something that's going to bring us into our next topic. But first of all, we're not going to save our planet. If you look at our planet, that we're on a spaceship, like Bucky says, and if we keep on spoiling our atmosphere, our water, and our soil, we are definitely going to die as a species, and other species along with us. This planet will still be here. We don't have to save it. This spaceship will be floating around, but we're going to be killing our life support system. As far as getting off of oil entirely, that's to keep on doing the natural growth of things. It would be pretty impossible to do that. And I'll tell you why, Dennis. Because it requires with today's knowledge, it still requires a very high BTU content to build solar panels. And I can tell you a really good, true story. I forgot the name. I forgot the name of the solar company. It was a big solar company, and it's here in the States that built an enormous factory. And they figured the solar panels will build the solar panels, and that, in other words, they'll have enough heat from the solar panels resource to build the solar panels. And they couldn't get the heat out of the solar panels, even with concentrators, which they tried using. They couldn't get sufficient amount of heat out of the sun to use for the solar panels. I'm really sorry, I just went blank on the name.
Even with the concentrators we have now?
Yes, but they didn't have, at that time, they used concentrators, but they couldn't get the volume to build the solar panels. So they
the glass and
the glass to
right,
heat the glass. So they went to fossil fuel, which was natural gas. So you can't get off of fossil fuel. Totally.
But we can definitely scale back.
Right, and I'm suggesting that we use the fossil fuel as the condiment, like salt and pepper, rather than the main course. Use biomass fuels. That means alcohol fuels that's fermented by the sun, algae and garbage and things that we're polluting with, to use that for our liquid transportation fuel, and use the oil that comes out of the ground for the condiment to build the renewable energy sources like the blades on a wind generator. So you can never really get off of fossil fuel. Now, what you're saying, on the other hand, is stop killing people to make money from the Mideast. And that's the part you're talking about.
And I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay, go ahead.
I wasn't sure if we would have. I'm just going to mention the Global Buddhist Climate Change Collective has come out with a climate change statement.
Like the Pope
and
did.
Their website is gbccc.org if you want to read the full statement, but I'll just read one paragraph from it that kind of condenses it. We believe it imperative that the global Buddhist community recognize both our dependence on one another as well as on the natural world. Together, humanity must act on the root causes of this environmental crisis, which is driven by our use of fossil fuels, unsustainable consumption patterns, lack of awareness, and a lack of concern about the consequences of our actions.
Would you read a part of that again in the middle, somewhere you mentioned?
Together, humanity must act on the root causes.
Root causes. The root cause that they're talking about
crisis
is the economic system. That's the root cause. That's also the root cause.
The most dysfunctional system we've got right now is the way that we operate within our economics.
Right. That is the root cause.
I think we have maybe 15 minutes. I did want to introduce this one article because I did mention it in the summer.
Go ahead.
And we may have to go back to it in the next program if we have a chance. I may be able to. I mentioned that we'll be referring to this article. It was emailed to us. It's by Jennifer Jacquet, Jacquet, She's a assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Studies at New York University. And she wrote this article that came in an email to us about big oil and baboons. Now, what the heck would they have in common? But she's trying to talk about
Read the whole thing.
big oil and baboons on culture, conscience, and climate denial.
Let me see if I can get this closer so you can see what it looks like. If I can move the cameras over to here. I gotta move the camera over a little bit to here.
And
Okay.
the question that she's addressing here is how much can we change the premise? How can we, how does our nature impact what we're capable of doing as humans? And the baboons have something to do with that because we study baboons for their various tendencies because they're very close in their genetic structure to ourselves. And so there's things we can learn from them. And she goes on to say here about when in studying a troop of baboons, these two scientists were studying a group of baboons that were predisposed to a great deal of aggression. And they used aggression during disputes, not unlike chimpanzees and humans. During the mid-1980s, these two scientists, Sapolsky and Scher, watched a rare tragedy unfold. The troop's most aggressive males died from bovine tuberculosis contracted from eating from an open garbage pit near a tourist camp. The troop's survivors were largely unaggressive and mostly female, which led to a development and even more strange persistence of a gentler, more peaceful baboon culture. New high-ranking male baboons that entered the troop adapted their behavior to this new culture, showing that they could override their evolutionary disposition. A decade later, these behavioral patterns and more pacific culture continued, at least in that troop. So she's talking about an environmental impact and then a environmental cultural impact,
right, because
that evolved after the more aggressive.
And I think she's meaning that
the
baboons and the oil companies are very aggressive.
And are warmongering, etc.
Right.
If, and I'm not saying we have to somehow poison all of our warmongers, but an agreement among people that there are other ways to accomplish solution, and these are don't have to be aggressive. I mean, even the baboons figured it out, though they had a little help from a poisoned garbage dump. So our author.
We're doing the same thing, and as Dennis says, that if we don't, you use the word "save the planet" a lot, Dennis, but the reality is, if our aggression keeps on poisoning our atmosphere, we're going to wipe out our species. And that's the point. And that's what Bucky also says, that if we, on the spaceship Earth, if we continue to hurt the hurt the atmosphere with CO2, and we continue to poison the water with fracking and facsimile of gold or whatever we do out to the ground, or groundwater, and we poison our soil with a lack of decent, with real natural fertilizers instead of fossil fuel fertilizers, then we are going to wipe out our water and our fuel and our air, and we'll die. And that's what we're doing and I'm going to say that it's not the 1% who's so aggressive. It's you and I as a species.
But the hopeful thing about this is we can change.
Right.
We can change. And here's another.
Well, I want to just get this the point. You see where I'm going? That it's not the 1% who's so aggressive and nasty.
We have those tendencies.
We as a species have those tendencies.
Right.
And we refuse to look at them. We say, no, we're not doing that. It's those people. The 1% is no, we are part of that. I am part of that. You are part of it. We have to accept that we're all part of it. And we have to change the basic premise of our survival in the economic world, so we work in the actual world of nature, cooperation with nature, and if you want to be religious about it, and God. We need to work within within the parameters. Okay, now
and to bring this.
Dennis has a comment, because when you use the word, or when I use the word greed, I'm not talking about a 1-year-old who hasn't eaten in 2 days and grabs that food. I'm not saying that's greedy. I'm saying if it's a millionaire who wants to become a billionaire.
I never used the word greed. Dennis, I never used the word greed once in that statement.
Well, all I'm saying is how you do it. That's it. If it's grabbing that oil over there, taking out that democratically elected leader in the Middle East, putting in a dictator, and then, you know, provoking what we call terrorism, I think it's greed that's causing a lot of these problems.
I'm going to bring something out to you. There is no such thing as greed. That's an emotion. It's not measurable.
Well, let's stop
and finish this article.
I'm just going to go a little bit deeper into the article by Ms. Jacquet. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Let's bring this experiment away from the baboons and into our actual culture. What's happening in our culture with humans that are being affected by and there are many cultures within cultures. There's a culture, and this one in particular that she's going to refer to is the culture of banking and bankers and what kind of effects they are dealing with. And she's saying here, recent research has shown that professional cultures mediate dishonesty in humans. An experiment involving hundreds of Europeans revealed that bankers were more dishonest than other professionals, but only when their banker identity was activated. Otherwise, if bankers did not think about their professional identity, they were just as honest as people from other professions.
Amazing.
So they will then make in their minds an area of their lives where they'll behave in a certain way, but when they're not in that culture or professional culture, they behave with generosity, and that's why you can go from your banking profession to your religious.
And we all do that.
Beliefs.
For instance, I will go into a store, and then I go into my banking mode and say, where can I get my old man discount? Or where can I come into the all-you-can-eat buffet an hour early and get my discount? That's our banking mode. You see what I'm saying? We're all doing the same thing. We're all being as greedy as we can possibly be within our own mind belief
But that's a
system.
symptom of the way our economics
Right. Now, I'm not saying you're a bad person as a human being,
it's a survival
but it's part of
strategy.
the economic system. Does that make sense to you, Dennis?
I wanted to
Okay,
complete this
Go
thought
ahead.
before
Go
you
ahead.
bring Dennis in. Studies like this, and this is important, it's a profound thing to understand. Studies like this demonstrate that unethical behavior is more endemic to the culture than to our human conscience.
Right.
And that's very important.
And religious people say all humanity is inherently evil. No, it's not.
These are cultural things we're learning in order to survive. And within our economic system, as it is practiced right now, these kind of decisions and actions are demanded of people, unless you drop out of it entirely and say, I'm not going to participate. But it's very, very hard to do that anymore. It used to be possible in the 50s, 60s, maybe the beginning of the 70s. You could live very cheaply somewhere, and you weren't as impacted as much. But now it's really very hard to find
anywhere in the world.
Well, I don't know about anywhere in the world, but anywhere in the United States, very, very hard to live in a marginal way because you're told you got to move on. You can't stay here and anchor your boat. We're going to make this into a condo basin of some kind. You know, where we don't want to look at anybody.
You got to pay your taxes.
You know, well, that's true too. You know, part of that culture. If you don't own property. If you own property, you know, you're constantly paying taxes, right? Okay.
Can Dennis make a comment?
Yeah, right. Certainly.
We have 4 minutes.
Yes. what I was saying before is, if anybody is grabbing that food, or hasn't eaten in days, or in shelter, if it's terrible outside and they just have to be inside, then I think that's much, much different than that billionaire who says, I can be a trillionaire if I invest.
But that has nothing to do. But Dennis, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. We're talking about basic needs met for all. If I'm a trillionaire or a billionaire, it's not, has no conception of what you do as an individual. The economic system is set up so it doesn't care about the person who has no shelter or food. We're suggesting that.
So you're saying, Jeff, it doesn't matter how many people are dying over in Gaza or over in the Middle East.
No, the economic. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the economic system doesn't care. I'm saying the opposite. That no matter how much I make, until the economic system changes, those people are going to die. And they're going to be shot, and we're going to drop drones on them, because that's the nature of our economic system.
Right, it's a symptom of our economic.
It has nothing to do with the billionaire or the trillionaire. It has nothing to do with them at all, because you can't tell me how much they have to put back to stop these people from dying. We got 2 minutes. Let's see if we can finish up or get a little further.
Into the article by Jennifer Jacquet.
We're going to try to get on the program.
Well, that would be interesting. But then she goes on to start to relate this, these things, the way that we have made our pact with culture, our modern culture, and our behaviors within our modern culture, either professional or just the general social aspects of how we operate with each other. And how that conflicts with conscience, with our human conscience, and in regards to climate change. And she goes on to say, given that climate change presents the biggest threat to nature as we know it, and I don't know if that's true, but it is a huge threat. I don't think it's the biggest, but that's another conversation. We humans share the same basic genetics, yet there is large variability between individuals and countries with regards to action on climate. These differences indicate that the software of culture and conscience, rather than the hardware of genetics, are the main forces in acting or not acting on climate change. To get more specific about culture and conscience, let's focus on climate denial, due to its role in obfuscating opinion and perhaps action on climate. Climate denialism is more prevalent in the United States than in any other countries. A study compared media coverage from November 2009 to February 2010 in Brazil, China, France, India, United Kingdom, and the United States showed that the US media published the highest proportion of articles expressing doubt about climate change.
That's the economic system.
This is our culture.
That's the economic system at work.
And our culture, which is dictated by our economics.
Right.
So anyway, here we go. We'll come back to this article
Next
again.
Thank you all for listening. Enjoy our program. Talk to your friends about it.
It all comes down to energy.
Thank you for joining us.
Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's the fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. No, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. Wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.